All right, let's just get right into it, shall we? Welcome to this explainer where we're going to unpack one of the most chaotic and honestly, psychologically fascinating social experiments I think we've ever seen. So picture this. You've got one woman, and she is literally trapped on a tropical island with six of her ex-boyfriends for 30 days. But look, this is definitely not a vacation, and they aren't just there trying to rekindle old flames. What we're actually looking at here is a total masterclass in game theory, manipulation, and high-stakes strategy. Literally every single conversation is a calculated move on a giant chessboard. Right off the bat, we kind of need to establish exactly why these guys are willingly putting themselves through this intense psychological ringer. I mean, why do it? Well, the motivation driving every single behavior, every kind gesture, every bitter argument, it all comes down to a massive prize pool. $250,000. That is a staggering amount of money, and it fundamentally shifts the entire dynamic. These competitors aren't just trying to be like the good boyfriend. They're desperately trying to prove their worth as a strategic partner to secure a totally life-changing payday. But here is where the absolute genius of the game design truly shines. It all boils down to this singular, terrifying question: split or steal? See, if a contestant manages to actually survive all 30 days and become the last X standing, they're hit with a final, brutal choice. They can either split that $250,000 with Ashley, the woman who kept them there, or they can just steal the entire prize pool for themselves. Bam. This ultimate psychological dilemma just hangs over literally every single decision made on that island. Because think about it. How do you convince someone you won't steal from them when $250,000 is on the line? So, here's our playbook for mapping out the next 30 days. 1. The $250,000 island rules. 2. Strategy 1, playing aloof. 3. The threat of the steal. 4. Physical challenges and immunity. And finally, 5. Navigating social dynamics. Let's get to it. Okay, Section 1. The $250,000 island rules, survival is secondary. Because the host provides literally everything they could possibly need to live: food, shelter, the works. Physical survival is totally secondary. This forces the competitors to focus entirely on social engineering and manipulation. That mental game just completely takes over, and it's driven by a relentless ticking clock. Every 5 days, Ashley is forced to eliminate one of her exes. Day 5, day 10, day 15, and so on, all the way to the final decision on day 30. This rigid timeline means absolutely no one can just coast. Every 5 days is an absolute, nail-biting fight for social survival. Which brings us right back to the ultimate mechanic that defines this whole timeline: the split or steal. The absolutely crucial thing to remember here is that Ashley's entire elimination strategy has to be viewed through this specific lens. She isn't just asking herself, hey, who do I like the most? She is forced to ask, who among these guys, if I actually carry them all the way to day 30, is going to share this money with me, and who is going to stab me in the back? And let me tell you, that paranoia, it infects the entire island. Moving on to Section 2, Strategy 1, playing aloof, and the early mistakes. You've got to notice the stark contrast in these early baseline approaches. So on one hand, you have Jake. Jake tries to play it super cool. He acts completely aloof, playing hard to get, and even literally jokes to Ashley, "You're too old for me." Like, wow. Then, on the completely opposite end of the spectrum, you've got Danny and Mitchell. These guys get it. They immediately recognize that this is a game of service. They're out there building the camp, setting up hammocks, fetching cold water. They essentially treat Ashley like absolute royalty, just to ensure she keeps them around. And, well, the results of these diverging strategies are immediate and fatal to the game. On day 5, Ashley is handed a literal hammer and asked to smash the heart of the person she wants to send home. And yep, she smashes Jake's heart. Jake completely failed to treat the island like the strategic business transaction it was, and his aloofness got him sent packing right away with absolutely zero cash. Which brings us to Section 3, the threat of the steal. Romance meets calculus. Grab your popcorn because things are about to get vastly more complicated. So remember Mitchell? He was the guy building the camp, cooking oatmeal, really leaning heavily into an old romantic connection with Ashley. He seemed like an absolute lock to make it to the end, right? But then Ashley drops this incredibly perceptive quote. She says, "I low-key think Mitchell would steal it all." Wow. So despite all his acts of service, Ashley's strategic realization about his true underlying motives completely derailed his frontrunner status. She figured out that the romance might actually just be a really clever smokescreen for a $250,000 heist. And honestly, this brilliantly illustrates the ruthless nature of this game. On day 10, in a massive blindside, Ashley eliminates Mitchell. As he's walking away, he drops this bizarre, cryptic message to the remaining guys. "Count the stars for me, boys. I mean, what does that even mean? This elimination sends absolute shockwaves through the camp. The remaining men suddenly wake up and realize that even a strong emotional connection isn't a shield against the cold, hard math of the game. Suddenly, no one is safe. Okay, let's jump to Section 4, Physical Challenges and Immunity, Earning Safety. With the social game basically turning into a minefield of paranoia, the remaining guys realize they desperately need a backup plan. And this is where the physical challenges introduced by the host become an absolute lifeline to guarantee survival. For example, on day 9, they are taken to Challenge Island for a high-octane physical relay. Step 1, dig a key out of the sand. Step 2, unlock a hammer and smash a stone. Step 3, push a heavy barrel up a ramp. Gary completely dominates this fast-paced challenge. He wins it effortlessly. And his prize? A luxury 24-hour date night with Ashley, complete with a real bed and a 3-course meal. Talk about perfectly securing your social standing right before an elimination. But the stakes get even higher by day 15. The men have to swim way out into the ocean to retrieve puzzle pieces to reconstruct a broken heart. And the winner gets literal, undeniable immunity. Now Danny, who absolutely knows he's on the chopping block because he's been annoying Ashley, pulls off an incredibly smart move here. While all the other exhausted guys are resting in the water between laps, Danny outsmarts them. He rests while building his puzzle on the beach. Boom. Through that clever pacing, Danny wins the challenge, forcing a devastated Ashley to eliminate a completely safe ally, Logan, instead. Honestly, it was a genius move. Moving on to Section 5, Navigating Social Dynamics, Boredom versus Annoyance. As we get to the late game, the isolation really sets in, and the remaining guys take drastically different approaches. Derek and Gary, they choose to give Ashley space. They remain quiet, essentially trying to survive by just flying under the radar and avoiding any fatal mistakes. But then you have Danny. Danny pushes constant entertainment. He's doing goofy, slightly insulting yoga with her, forcing interactions, and just completely dominating her time. This dynamic forces Ashley into an incredibly difficult corner. And I actually want you, the viewer, to consider this for a second. Would you rather be bored to tears by a quiet, honest ally who will definitely split the money with you, or constantly entertained by a selfish wildcard who might just steal it all at the very end? It's a totally fascinating dilemma of human psychology, right? And what is truly captivating about all this is that Danny knows exactly what he's doing. He even flat out says, "I think I'm playing mental games with every single person on this island." His annoying, over-the-top behavior isn't just him being goofy for the sake of it. Actually, scratch that. It's a highly calculated maneuver. By constantly monopolizing Ashley's attention, he isolates her from Derek and Gary. He makes the other guys step back, which then makes Ashley wonder if those guys even want to be there at all. It is brilliant, albeit pretty toxic, manipulation. And as that mental fatigue peaks, the physical pressure just keeps escalating. On day 20, they face a grueling balance challenge, standing on these wobbly platforms out in the ocean. The last person standing gets crucial power in the game, but the exhaustion is so real at this point that Derek falls into the water a mere 35 seconds in. Wow. The margin for error is officially 0. Which brings us to the ultimate takeaway of this whole explainer. We've seen physical dominance, tactical aloofness, and just pure, unadulterated psychological warfare. But as the days count down and that final decision looms over everyone, I want to leave you with this final, provocative thought to chew on. If you survived 30 days of relentless, paranoid manipulation on an isolated island, could you really look your ex in the eye and trust them to hand you $125,000? I'll let you decide. Thanks so much for joining me for this breakdown, and keep analyzing the game.